speaker for today. Chaplain Norris Burkes began his chaplain career with both active duty Air Force and Air National Guard until his retirement in 2014, and we'll talk about his inability to successfully retire in a moment. His assignments included Cape Canaveral Air Station, Izmir Air Station in Turkey, and Moffett Field. If you get a chance afterwards, be sure and ask him about some of his experiences with shuttle launches there at Cape Canaveral. He also served as a combat chaplain in Balad, Iraq, with additional deployments in Saudi Arabia and Panama. And you know much of this from his columns. These are not mysteries to you. Alongside his military service, he also served as a board-certified healthcare chaplain at Sutter Memorial, Kaiser, Methodist, and Mather, thank you, VA hospitals. He tried to retire again in 2014, but has yet to do so successfully since he's gone back into chaplaincy with Hospice of the Foothills in Grass Valley there in California. Now, most of you know Chaplain Burkes through his spirituality column syndicated in 35 papers around the country, as well as our Post and Courier here in Charleston. As you know, he offers a humorous and hope-filled approach to everyday spirituality, and his most recently published book is entitled Thriving Beyond Surviving, which retells some of his favorite newspaper columns. So if you don't hear the right story today, be sure and buy one of the books because they'll be in those. Norris and I share an alma mater in Baylor University, there in Waco, Texas, where he studied religion and journalism, two things that have served him well in his career. Before then going on to earn a Master of Divinity degree from Golden Gate Seminary in California, as well as Masters of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from Pacific University. And now, ever the glutton for punishment, he is currently enrolled in a Master's in Journalism program at the University of Nevada. Norris and I also share a strange compulsion for running, which he has now completed 2 marathons, and you might see him limping up here as evidence of that compulsion. At the conclusion of his talk, we will hear a little bit about how we can support work very near and dear to his heart in Honduras. And then also following his talk, as you'll see, we have books available that he will be able to sign, and then you can talk to him for a moment. And then we also, we'll have refreshments available as you're waiting for him to sign a book and purchase one. One of the books that he has over here is the one that I already mentioned, but then also Hero's Highway, which tells about his experience as a chaplain in a combat hospital. Norris is also the author of No Small Miracles, the father of 4 grown miracles, and living proof that 40 years of a happy marriage is still God's greatest miracle. Chaplain Norris Burkes.
Now, I've been married for 42 years, but only 40 of them are happy, as the pastor. I got to change that in the bio, 42 years. So, and listen, about that retirement situation, I retired from the military, and they proudly announced Chaplain Burkes' retirement unindicted. So if you can retire from the military unindicted, you've done a successful career in the military. Let's see. Come on in. So, all right. I am a speaker with the microphone because I'll just warn you, this is what I do. If I get loud, I'm down here. If I get real soft, I'm right here. So if anybody's having trouble hearing, I do recognize this universal sign. I will see it if you'll just, and if you do this, I recognize that. Or if you do this, I recognize that. So anyway. Listen, Proverbs 17:22, what does it say? A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And I don't know about you, but I've had a crushed spirit at times or two. But I can also tell you that a joyful heart is good medicine. And Ecclesiastes 3:4 says, of course, it's a time to weep, and a time to laugh, and a time to mourn, and a time to dance. and nobody here wants to see me dance. I wish we had a pianist here. I could show you. Yeah, I would show you my dancing, and you would say I'm putting on. Like, you're kidding me, right? So my wife she does not want me to dance. Well, I surprised her one day. We were on a cruise, and I wrote about this. We were on a cruise on the East Coast, and I smuggled in my mess dress uniform. That's the fancy tuxedo military uniform. I smuggled that in, and so I showed up. I said, "Oh, I'm gonna go get ready," and I showed up back to the door, and knocked on the door, and presented my bride. I said, "I got this. Come on, we're going to a special dinner." And everyone's looking at me like I'm the ship's captain. And I said, "No, I don't know when we're going to be there. I'm sorry." But we get into the dining room, and I pull out. I said, "Honey, I've just prepared you for this news today." I pulled out. "I have one more set of orders." And she teared up. She said, "Where are you going this time?" I said, "Honey, let me read it." And Chaplain Norris Burkes' retirement from the United States Air Force is set on this date. And she was so excited. She had been asking me for years when we were going to retire because, and she would tell you, very frankly, this isn't really funny, but she would tell you, she was always afraid that I was going to die. And then we did lose one chaplain in Afghanistan, so she was always worried about that. And so she's very grateful. When I told my commander that I was going to surprise my wife, my commander, she said, "Women don't like surprises. Are you sure?" I said, "No, this is going to be..." So I had the ship's photographer come in, and he's coming. I had him arranged. Come at 6:15 to the table. And he comes there, and he sees my wife crying, and he's thinking, "This didn't work out well. I don't know what this guy had planned." And I'm like, "Take the picture." He goes, "Now? Yeah, take the picture." And so I got a picture of her holding the paper, and her just, you could tell she's tearing up. But afterwards, I took her out dancing. And so she said, "I don't know." I took it. No, I'm gonna dance. And so I had already had a couple of Excedrin that night. So we went to the dance floor, and I just danced across the floor like this, and just dancing like the Energizer Bunny, and she's just like this. But I'm telling you, I think you guys get it. Everyone's like, "Oh, that is so sweet. Like, he can't dance, but he just loves her that much." I go, "Yeah, you got it." So that's my joyful heart, and I try to show it and I try to. It just helps a whole lot. I was going to say, let's see. Hold on. Benefits. There's some benefits of laughter. Laughter is truly a good medicine. It's got immeasurable benefits to it. It gives your internal organs a gentle massage when you laugh. It's an effective workout. It aerates your blood. It oxygenates your brain. It improves your circulation, and it boosts your mood. So, and as well as even maybe your immune system, brightens your outlook and so forth. And it helps you cope, gives you a better look at your future. So I'm going to have you try something. Interestingly enough, you don't have to hear something funny to laugh. You can actually self-generate this. You can laugh even when you don't feel like laughing. It's a physical process. It's stimulated by humor sometimes, but it is a physical process. And you can start laughing even if there's not anything funny. So it's a great stress reliever, so we're going to do an exercise right now. I want you to pretend you're an actor, and your part is that you have to laugh. So right now, on cue, I'm just going to, come on. Now look at your partner and go, "This guy's crazy. Whoever you're with, like, this guy's crazy." Don't do an evil eye, but just laugh. Just laugh your heart out. Make it genuine laughter. It's the biggest factor in fun, and if you read my columns, it's mostly laughing at myself. But sometimes I like to laugh at Mrs. Chaplain. Wait, oh shoot, she's watching online. She doesn't like me to call her Mrs. Chaplain. She has her own life. She's a retired school teacher, and I am very proud of her. So, but one of my favorite stories about her, it's on, what page did you say it's on? It's page 164 of this book. No. So, but the tragedies I see in the hospital seem like half the time it's a soap opera or the words to a country song. And so a natural result of having witnessed these tragedies is that I develop some pretty quick anxiety when somebody is late to the house, my daughter, my family members. And it happened some years ago that my wife was an hour late. And she returned home, and she started telling this story where she was, why she was late. She had played the Good Samaritan. And I look at her, I say, I've told you many times, the Good Samaritan has got more people killed than any story in the Bible. You don't stop and help people. Not unless you're with somebody. And so the story I tell today is a story I wrote while having a severe writer's block within 24 hours of my deadline. And she came in the door, and I'm trying to write something on the computer. And she starts telling this story. And I hit the delete button on everything I've written, and I said, tell it a little slower, please. So this is the story. I'm sticking to it, and because I wrote it down as it nearly happened, my wife had noticed this college-age girl stranded in this VW-packed convertible alongside this 4-lane highway near our house. It was 104 degrees that day, and I wrote that down that day. It was 104. And so our daughter had recently made this 800-mile trip to a migration. She was in college, and so I think my wife was experiencing a little guilt about my daughter being gone because she saw this college girl going off to college with a fully packed VW. She stopped and she said, "Are you having trouble?" And the lady said, "Yes. I can't get my pig back in his kennel." Now, you have to know my wife. She loves every animal there is except any kind of indoor animal. She doesn't care for dogs. She doesn't care for cats. She likes your dog and she likes your cat because you're nice. But she won't, she just likes every outside animal more than you'd ever know. And so, but the pigs, that was a different one for her. So she noticed this strange movement under this netting. She had this convertible netted over with a bungee cord nesting, and there's a bicycle inside there too. And this pig was working his way out of the bicycle frame and in and out of the stuff, trying to get out. And my wife just looks in there and goes, "Oh, a pig." Now, she didn't know much about pigs, and she sure wondered why this pig had to be moved somewhere to college or something like that. And my wife says, "Well, why can't it just stay where it is? Why does it need to go back in the cage?" Well, the lady said, "Well, maybe she could stay there. Do you think the pig will be okay for the 400 miles I'm driving to San Diego?" My wife didn't think that the pig would like that. So, let's try to put it back in the crate, she said. So the couple pushed and prodded and pulled to navigate this animal through the bike frame and under the bungee net, and the pig was just letting out these horrendous squeals. And one thing my wife knew at this point is that pigs can be extremely loud. I had no idea, but apparently they can be really loud. And I didn't know anything about it, but I had heard they could be loud. Years ago, I attended Baylor University, and we were told that pigs were loud enough that our arch rival, the Texas Aggies, used it as a car alarm. Any Aggies here? So, alarmed that this pig was now foaming at the mouth, my wife was losing her motivation to hold this mammal, this loud and stinky thing, and wondered if it had this infectious disease because it was foaming at the mouth. I'm telling this story exactly as it happened. I'm telling you, I wrote it all down. I say all my columns are true except the ones that aren't. And so this one is really true. But it was starting to feel like a candid camera scene or a Twilight Zone, and then it happened. The pig leapt from its perch and bolted across 4 lanes of Labor Day traffic Not a freeway, but I think the speed limit was around 45, 50 miles an hour. And you got to understand, this is California. I've seen people stop for geese. I've stopped for geese. Dogs, skunks, but stopping for a pig would strain the patience of even any tree-hugging Californian. But my wife wanted to make good her offer of help. So she threw up her arms quicker than a charismatic at a revival meeting and stopped traffic. Again, Good Samaritan story, not a good example. You're going to get killed. Cars were careening and bacon was squealing, and the young girl cornered the chase in the roadside bushes, and my wife crossed the street to join them, and she overheard the girl asking herself, how do I get myself into these things? My wife echoed this sentiment, how do I get myself into these things? And despite having trapped this pig in the bushes, the women were losing control of their ability to capture this animal, and they started examining their options. The girl said, I guess, remember, I'm typing this out, I guess I should call the owner, but she doesn't have a car. My wife's like, this isn't your pig? I'm the Good Samaritan and there's nobody here to actually help? No, it belongs to a friend of mine. I promised to bring her to UC San Diego for her brother. How do I get myself into these things? Call your friend. My wife took a sudden tone of command that she's not used to. Call your friend, and I'll go pick her up. The girl said, you'd do that? In a heartbeat. And no, she didn't say that. My wife said, certainly. So, moments later, my wife returned with her friend, and they quickly accepted their dismissive assurances that they would be all right. And my wife extracted herself and came home and told me the story. Look, I wrote that story. I've written it, published it a couple of times, and I always try to make a spiritual point out of my columns, as you know. But there's only one really pig-related story in the Bible. And so I know it's of a demon-possessed herd running off a cliff as the owners tried to retrieve them. And as demon-possessed as this pig may have seemed, it would be forcing the point to parallel that story. But one point might be made. Guess when I wrote this? On the anniversary of 9/11, 1 year later. Why would I publish a story like that, aside from the fact I had writer's block? Why would it? Well, let's see. So it was Memorial. Well, it was Labor Day, so not quite September 11th. Yeah, so I wrote the story because despite the remembrances of that week, we have to hold on to our God-given ability to laugh. And as we trust the healing process, our hearts will heal, and we will be able to celebrate moments in life and celebrate that divine smile that God has placed in every single one of you. So it really is some of the best laughter, and I try to use that in my columns, and some of those columns I get about trying to be funny, not a comedian, but trying to be, are some of my best accepted ones. Why? I don't really know, but why? I use some self-deprecating humor, not humor that, puts me down in a false way, but the self-deprecating humor helps you to tell people that you admit that you are imperfect, that you see those mistakes you make in life. Somebody fed me peppers today. I'm not saying who, Pastor Pepper. So, anyway, but they're self-deprecating, and so I've written these things and try to be a little funny. But 10 years ago, I wrote about the sensuous thoughts that I was having when this very pretty Vietnamese barber cut my hair. And as she put her fingers in my hair back here near my ear, I kind of tingled a little bit. I'm like, whoa, that feels good. And I wrote about that, and I was just very honest about it. And then, but I turned the column around. This chaplain fool here who's feeling these feelings is human. And I turned it around, and I said, But as the lady began to describe her escape from Vietnam and her children, this person became a real person to me, not just some object of my sentiments, you know. She became real. So I wrote that in a column very frankly. And so it was a 3-day weekend again, and so I came to work that morning. I was not the chaplain on call all weekend, so it wasn't my responsibility to check the voice messages. So I walked into the Tuesday morning meeting, and everyone goes, "How you doing, Norris?" And they had this smile on their face, like, I don't know how most of them didn't read the column because it wasn't in the local paper, but they were like, how's that barber of yours? And they're like, oh, it's like, are you feeling a little lusty this morning? You know, like, oh, what are we talking about? Wait a minute. He goes, well, apparently one of my readers had found my work phone number and then called and left a message on the hospital phone saying, how dare a 45-year-old man be lustful? Like, dudette, or whoever you are, so, I mean, making fun of myself a little bit is the way I tell you that your failures or your disappointments are okay. And I believe that humor helps us to relate to the human side of Jesus. In fact, if you don't think I got voicemail after this comment in the column when I wrote, if you can't see Jesus stepping behind a tree to relieve himself, then you're not seeing him as human. Now, I'll probably get some emails for that too. But Jesus was a human. He came as a human. And he also laughed. And I kept this picture in my office for many years until I found out where the source was. It was from Playboy magazine. But it was a great drawing of Jesus just giving a good laugh. You know, and then, wait, what does it say in the corner? Playboy, what? So, but it's the humorous side of my faith that I try to talk about in my column. That's why I call it spirituality in everyday life, because after 9/11, I think my editors saw what most of us were taking for granted, namely that if you can't make your faith effective here, or I'm sorry, if you can't make your faith effective out there, it's not going to be effective here. So faith that's only effective in this room is not faith that works. And so I want to make sure that it works. So I write this self-deprecating humor, and so case in point, when it comes to macadamia nuts, I am like Dr. Seuss' Sam I Am. After his version to conversion experience of green eggs and hams, I can eat macadamia nuts in a box, with a fox, in a house, with a mouse. I eat them here, I eat them there, I eat them everywhere. And so they're also known as Hawaiian nuts, which I was so happy about when in 2007, for the sacrifice of serving our country, I went to 2 weeks in Hawaii for a hurricane exercise. And so we were there, and then we worked hard. In the evenings, we went out to eat. And so one particular evening, I accompanied my friends, Master Sergeant Michelle Roberts, and that's real names, Major Robert Flynn, to a beachside eatery known as Ponds. It's called Ponds because it's over a pond, and it's over a koi pond. You just imagine a beautiful scene. I think you all can imagine that. Beautiful koi pond. And we picked it, or I picked it, because I had read they specialize in macadamia and seafood dishes. And so after being seated by the hostess, Roberts and Flynn busied themselves cooing over the koi fish. And so they're off at the corner looking over, and I'm still at the menu. Come on, man. I'm gonna have me some macadamian stuff. And so takes more than those multicolored fish or Hawaiian sunsets to distract me from food. I don't know about you, but I got down to business. And so eventually the server took our orders, and she promised she'd be back in a few minutes, and with our drinks as well as some fish food for the koi. It's important that you hear, I'll be back with a minute with some fish food for the koi, because I didn't hear that, and you need to hear it. While we waited, I reopened the menu to find the dessert, and I became distracted. Macadamia pie, what? Macadamia cake, what? And so our server reappeared. He placed the drinks on the table along with what seemed like, to me, a bowl of macadamia nuts. And so I began popping those golden nuggets in my mouth. Flynn and Roberts dropped their mouths in wide incredulity, and I can write it better than I can say it, incredulity. The waitress tipped her tray a little unsteady as she watched me eat it. What? I thought, why were they staring at me? Suddenly my gag reflex divulged what my friends were too shocked to say. The nutty chaplain was eating the koi food. I retched over the railing, passing the choking chow to its intended recipients. My companions didn't stop laughing for 10 minutes. More than that, you know military, they went back to the camp and told everybody they knew. Now, you can be that that fish food eating person, and you can just tell yourself how stupid you are, and you can feel so bad, and you can hide in your tent, or you can walk out and go, yeah, it's crazy, wasn't it crazy? Well, my companions didn't stop laughing, and I didn't defend myself. But I tell people, I try to write to a spiritual point, even with these funny stories. And my point is, those small food balls fit my assumption of what a macadamia nut should look like, right? They fit my assumption. I insist that I tell my friends they could have made the same mistake. But honestly, my blunder reminds me of the oversight that made by people who repost so much things on their social media, who forward emails, and because they find something that fits their assumption of what this should look like. And they pass that along until everybody is eating koi food. But it's a great mechanism and humor. And people ask me how my column started. And you have to write a newspaper column, you often have to write a pitch, some sample of what you might be writing. So I was deployed to Saudi Arabia in 1999, Operation Desert. What was it? We were enforcing the no-fly zone into Iraq, and so I was anxiously wanting to see my name on the promotion list for major and for military promotions. And if you miss it, you can't stay in the active duty force if you miss your promotion. So I was waiting for that word, and I arrived in Saudi Arabia just Thanksgiving 1999. So I would check nearly every week to see if I was on the promotion list. And finally, just a few days before Christmas, my chaplain supervisor, Colonel Mike Bradshaw, and he came to my room with the priest. If somebody's at the door with the priest, this is the dormitory I was at, things are not good. They weren't carrying good news. Bradshaw didn't know how to be subtle. Even before we sat down. Even before they sat down, he said, well, you've been passed over for promotion. You'll be reconsidered next year. He said, but trust me, he said, that was a signature truism, but trust me, he said, you won't get another chance to remain on active duty. And the reason being is because, as he called it even then, it's a one-mistake Air Force. It means that if you're passed over once, generally they go, nah, we weren't wrong the first time, So for the next few weeks, my mind wasn't in the game, and I felt like I'd been terminally, been sort of a terminally ill patient waiting to get my affairs in order. So I guess it was appropriate. I forgot my prop. Anybody have a baseball cap with them? Anybody? Hey, thank you. Thank you. So, come to Texas. All right. So, I finished as I had those 3 months, 2 workouts, that one workout and then a breakfast and another workout, because that's all we had to do. It was kind of boring, and so I went to the office. We had a very nice little office, and went to the office, but before I went up the stairs to the office, I came in the building and I did what we all do in deployments. I don't know where this hat's been, so. And when we're done here, you won't want it back. So I put it right here, like all, you'll see this. Military people, that's where they were. So I went into the bathroom, as runners call it. I went into the bathroom to evacuate. I taught Tom what that word means this week. But it means sit down and do your business. So now I've told this story. Where's the pastor again? I told this story. So I've gotten complaints about, like, how dare you? But I don't care, what am I going to do after this? So anyway, so I sat down to do my business, and just so you know, hats dropping onto porcelain, you really can't hear it. So I sat down, stood up to do my paperwork, and looked around and looked down into the toilet, and there was a hat full of stuff. And my first thought is, so I never think it's me, like you guys. Yeah, it's not. I just said, what fool left his hat in the toilet? That is exactly, I'm telling you, that's exactly word for thought word I had in my head. And then I looked closer, and I thought, oh, that's my hat, because my mom taught me to put my name on the inside of everything. That's my hat. And I know what you're thinking. Just run. Just go. And I would have, but it had a chaplain's cross on it. Like, come on, man. Look, I'm not going to go into the details, but it left the toilet and it found its proper receptacle. And so I headed for the BX, the Walmart of the military. So I headed over there thinking I was going to go buy a hat. I got over there, where's the uniform shop? And they go, Chaplain, this is a deployed zone. You don't have a uniform shop. You have to get your uniform items. Where? From your office manager, or as we call it, the NCOIC, the non-commissioned officer in charge. Wait a minute, what? I've got to go back to tell my chaplain assistant that I need a new hat? And so I came back to the office and I said, he's so helpful, such a nice guy. And I said, I lost my hat, I need to know him. Well, Chaplain, and just so sincere, Chaplain, well, where did you lose it? I'll help you look for it. and I said, well, I really can't say for sure. He said, well, I really need one good reason that I should give you this hat. So I told him the story, and like you, he started first a little chuckle, and then and then he's bending over on his knees, and then he fell on the ground. And he said, I need one good reason. I said, well, I'll give you one good reason. There's a lot of officers that walk around with a head full of crap, but only one that admits it. He said, you got your hat. So, all of that's true. And so I confess, the Bible says in James 5:16, make this your common practice. Confess your sins to one another, or can we say crap, to each other, and pray for each other so that you can live together whole and healed. I confessed my mistake. I confessed my sin, and I got a new hat. And despite my sinking feeling that my career was flushed in the crapper of chaplain careerism, I had a creatively hysterical moment in which I emailed my editor friend back in Florida. I said, would this make a good column? He said no. I could never print that. But I emailed it around the community, around my military base, and it got forwarded, and people came and laughed, and they just thought it was so funny. Because I said, I'm not perfect, and I do stupid things. And so he saw through my crap, and 10 months later, my editor did invite me to start this column. Now, as for Colonel Bradshaw, who asked me to trust him, I'm going to tell you this. Trust is best left up to God, not man. Now, almost 20 years later, after the famous toilet week, I've wound down a successful career, having been promoted 2 more times after that promotion. And I retired from the National Guard in 2014, as most chaplains do, as a lieutenant colonel. Not a big accomplishment, an average one, but still, I wanted to say to Colonel, if I ever see Colonel Bradshaw again, I'd like to tell him one more thing. Trust me, God's not finished with me yet. Yeah. Well, I said I don't like looking at my watch, so I don't know. I'm trying to. You're going to tell me 10 more minutes. So, okay, all right. So, most of us laugh out of our irrational fear that we have. Sometimes we have irrational fear. My fear of losing my career, exaggerated by exaggerated, and it was seismically irrational, but it was nothing compared to odontophobia. Does anybody know what odontophobia is? Fear of dentists. But as you can see, my humor helps me cope. And if you ever met my dentist, you'd see that I really have no sane reason to fear him or his staff. The receptionist is congenial, the hygienist is perfectionist, and the dentist a professional. And so my anxiety becomes even more irrational to say when you know, I had no cavity. I got nothing in there. But I go to get my teeth cleaned. And so no cavities, straight arrow, perfect. So what's the problem? The problem is me. Now, I am not kidding. I'm telling you the truth. On my Air Force dental records, it says sensitive patient. Why? Because I stay in the waiting room after the appointment to stop shaking and to stop. I don't really shake. I don't know what I get, but I just don't like it, you know. So how did I earn that label? I think I'm a bit too tactile. I can't stand the scraping, grinding, or pounding of any water pick, of anything like that. If you really want to bother me, if you just hate me, just take this, hold it like this, and take your fingernail and do it. I didn't really mean for you to do that. No. Chalkboard's bad, but that and I know somebody's going to come up here and give $500 to Chispa and say, for that donation, I want to see you dance. And they're gonna Notice I slipped that in. So the X-ray, I'm just so sensitive. I can't stand the grinding, the water pick. The X-ray bite wings, when they put them in there, I just want to throw up. All right, I just chokes me. The glaring lights behind me, the drilling sounds make my skin crawl. Am I exaggerating? Well, here's how my last appointment went with Debbie, the new hygienist. I walk in. Can I have a blanket? Are you cold? No, I'm just missing my special blankie. Stunned. I'm joking, I said. I'm joking. But Debbie brings me a blanket. She tucks me in. She knows the drill, dental pun included. I decline her offer of safety goggles because, again, very sensitive. I bring my own darkened kind, the kind the optometrist gives you when you have your eyes dilated. And then over that, I put some sunglasses that I bought driving across the Utah salt flats. So I just hate the bright light in my eyes. And so I save them for teeth cleaning, or if I ever have to observe a nuclear detonation. And so she opens my mouth and she goes, "Oh my, how often do you brush my teeth?" This is me talking through a mouthful of latex-covered fingers. "Every day, I have whack issues." What? "I have plaque issues caused by high salinity." That's what a doctor told me. She brushes off my excuses and starts with her water cannon, and my feet kick in the air. And so she goes, and then I say, "My other hygienist used to numb my gums." She's like, "You're kidding." No, she used to, and it's better than the one dentist that had to use laughing gas on me. Oh my. I don't think we're going to have to go that far. I hope not. Still, so she spreads the gel through my gums, and instantly it feels like there's an ant colony climbing in my mouth. For the next 40 minutes, the numbing effects kept me relatively still. And Debbie sees, she goes like, see, that wasn't so bad. And I stand up and I gather my party favors, the floss and the toothbrush, and I take 15 minutes to decompose in the lobby. And truthfully, I have to give credit for one again facing my irrational fears. How did I face those fears? I did it first of all by admitting to Debbie about my fear. After she heard my fear, we laughed our way through it. But the laughter didn't stop there. I decided to write about those fears, and I decided to tell you about them so that we can all laugh together. And on my next appointment, or as we were leaving, I said, I asked Debbie to spell her name. She said, why? And my mouth is still numb, because I'm a wallamist. I'm going to make you famous. Debbie laughs. Just so you know, no chaplains were harmed in the dental cleaning. Well, I got more stories to tell you, but I want to close with one more. So let me find it. I was a 22-year-old seminary student. I was asked to preach a revival. And in case you're not experienced with what a revival is, it's a series of church meetings every night for a week. Wait, you go to church every night that week? Yeah, it's Southern Baptist stuff. It's guilt in the most concentrated form. And so on my very last sermon, just as the drama was rising, one of the parishioners passed out. And I hear this nurse say next to her, I think she stopped breathing. And I go, now I just want you to know, I wrote this, I wrote this, and some weeks later, I spoke to a group just like this. I'm sitting right up here in the front, and this lady comes up and passes me a note. And I open it looks really pretty stationary. I thought, this is going to be a nice note to start to say how much they love me and stuff. And she said, I read that story about you're preaching the revival, and I know you're just lying. That's not true. So this is true. And so the woman passes out, and I said, well, maybe we ought to stop the service. And I said, look, we could stop. They go, no, just keep preaching. This deacon next to me, he's in charge of the service. Just keep preaching. And so reluctantly, I continued. And the nurse suddenly calls out, I think we should call 911. And she's having a seizure. And I'm like, okay, now we're going to stop the service. Now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I said, we got to dismiss. And protest rose from the deacon again. He said, no, keep preaching. Assurances that this woman did this thing all the time on a regular basis. And so I jump-started my last tear-jerking illustration and introduced the most critical part of a Southern Baptist sermon, the invitation. Now, all of you tonight, put one hand on your heart and close your eyes. And we need to ask Christ Jesus in your heart. And if you've done that, just come. So we did all that. And so it's called the invitation, and publicly asking people to come to the altar. And I don't mean to make light of it, because it is a serious experience for some people. And so I motioned the music director to begin our invitational hymn, and the deacons responded to this. I wanted to sing the last song and just go, but the deacons responded to my suggestion with that damn the torpedo approach. And they firmly instructed the music leader to sing all 6 verses, right? So finally, somewhere in the middle of the verses, some common sense barged through the door in the form of paramedics with walking through, I got this covered, 10-4, and it's just rattling down the front. And they're asking me we need to stop now. No, finish the last verse. And so I'm not making this next part up. I signaled the deacons to stop, but he was the director to stop, but he was taking his motions from the deacons, and so they were all they took all the verses, and on the last verse, the patient and the paramedics made their escape, and the service ended, and I popped a breath mint, like I need to right after this service, and shook hands with those exiting out the back door, and in the exit line, a deacon stopped to assure me that the woman had fainted multiple times on multiple Sundays, and then he, right there at the back door there where the pastor, he pointed to a spot on the ground, As a matter of fact, some Sundays ago, she fainted right here, and we just had to walk over her to get out. Just a normal Sunday, he reported. And upon hearing that, that's all I could do to contain that breath mint, and it sprayed him with cert spit. But I use it to describe what's become customary. And customary isn't always right. I said customary. Doggone it. She is so rude. The congregation had settled into a new kind of normal, which involved building detours around the wounded. And the church people aren't the only ones that are capable of doing this. These days, our normal lives involve people losing their jobs, losing their friends, losing houses and loved ones. And we become good at building detours around painful thoughts. And we go to the mall and we fill up our cars with overpriced gas, and we detour around our pain. Like these church people, we can make one of two responses. We can use our pain as an excuse for detouring around the pain of others, or we can become involved in the hurts of everybody and lessen the load for all of us. Now, I want to close with this poem because that's what a good pastor does. Poem or song. You've heard that poem, Footprints in the Sand. All of you, most of you know it. There's a little less known parody of the poem, which I respectfully offer in closing today's thoughts. It's called Butt Prints in the Sand. One night I had a wondrous dream of one set of footprints there were seen, the footprints of my precious Lord, but mine were not along the shore. And then some strange prints appeared, and I asked, Lord, what have we here? These prints are large, they're round, and they're neat. But Lord, they're too big for feet. My child, he said in somber tones, for miles I carried you along. I challenged you to walk in faith, but you refused and you made me wait. You disobeyed and you would not grow. The walk of faith you would not know. So I got tired and I got fed up, and there I dropped you on your butt. Don't get dropped on your butt.
Well, Norris, I'm going to have to beg to differ with you on the most important part of a Southern Baptist service. It is not the invitation. What is it? It's the offering. It's the offering. So actually, we're going to take just a moment, and we're going to hear and learn a little bit more about Chispa, which is what Norris mentioned earlier, a program to provide libraries for Honduran schools. And let's go ahead and just. I want you to come to Honduras with me in 3 months. If you can't, give a bunch of cash. That's right. I want you to think about it, okay? But and following this, we will actually take up an offering, not for Norris to get back home, which he might want to do, but this is specifically for Chispa and the libraries there in Honduras. We good, Tom?